What's going on, chicken friends? It's Donna Little from the Coop Scoop, and I am finally back. Now, I haven't been anywhere. If you're new to the channel, you probably don't know what I'm talking about, but I had to take a little break from YouTube because I had a lot of things I had to get done here at the house. Unfortunately, I was not away on some beautiful island, but I was cleaning out and then cleaning up my in-laws' house because my husband lost both of his parents recently, and we had to get the house ready to rent. So that was taking up a lot of my time. But while I was taking a social media break, I also got a lot of projects done for the chickens. And I didn't want to leave you guys in the dark. I'm taking you along for the ride, even though I wasn't here. So along, I did a little bit of videoing. I didn't want you to miss the little bantams as they continue to grow because they have changed a lot and they've grown a lot since I was here a month ago. But I did some videoing, and I'm going to show you guys what we got accomplished, the projects we did. And the first thing that we started with, first and foremost, was to get a dumpster and get that thing filled up with the things from his parents' house, some things from our garage. And then we also have another storage building, and we decided to tackle that. We were like, we might as well, as long as we've got the dumpster here. And so we got that cleaned out for one of our projects. So a lot of things have happened with the chickens since I've been away, and I'm just going to show you all the stuff. It was a lot. You'll see.
We loaded up the dumpster and sent it on its way, and we were immediately on to the next project. And we got started on the storage building, and by the time it was all said and done, this is how it looked, and we made enough space to build new enclosures for the quail. They've got lots of room, plenty of sand to dust bathe in, and different places to bed down and lay eggs, and all in all, they seem very happy. I'm really glad that I have them down on the ground instead of in the hutches, but I still have the hutches in there just in case anybody decides to start some trouble. I also decided to go ahead and make 25 more quail just because I could. But as much fun as this was, it was time to move on to the next project. So we decided to use the one remaining fence panel that I had and make the outdoor run even bigger. It was 24 by 12 to start with, and now it's 24 by 18. So the bantams have plenty of space to sunbathe and enjoy the grass, and I'm so glad we did it. We also lined the inside of the fence with some mesh so that the bantams can't stick their head through, get it stuck. I know chickens do things that aren't always the brightest, so we didn't want anybody to get hurt that way, so it's completely lined, and the only thing left to do was to add the netting on the top. We used some of the bamboo from the front of our property as support, and while we were at it, we just went ahead and cut down a lot more of it, and we just let it sit here and let the girls enjoy it for a little while before we burned it. They thoroughly loved digging up underneath it and just foraging around in there. I'm sure there were tons of bugs to be had. I decided to add some fun things in the run for the bantams. They love standing on step stools and hopping up on the picnic table, which is also known as the poopnic table for obvious reasons. I also put a ladder in there, and they have really loved just walking around on there like a little tightrope and going from rung to rung. I also kept some of the bamboo, and I'm going to make them a little covered dust bath over in the corner, so I think that they'll enjoy that. They'll be able to hop up on it as well as get underneath it. I think they're really going to enjoy that when I get it finished. But what I have really enjoyed is watching them use the things that I've put in there. Work that balance beam, girl. Go, Poppy. You going up, Lulu? Good girl. Aren't they just the cutest? This is exactly what belongs on a picnic table. exactly. Now, even though we were busy with projects every day, of course I still made time to just hang out with them. And seriously, don't think for 1 minute my big girls were being ignored, because I made plenty of time for them too. I sat on the ground with them every single day like I always do, and I even let Alice man the camera, which she's pretty good at. And there was never a day when there wasn't plenty of begging for treats, because you know that's going to happen. And of course, I got to just enjoy watching these beautiful ladies forage around. And after an entire summer of being broody, Fern finally laid me another green egg. And there was never a shortage of leg dangles for anybody interested.
You gotta come get some leg dangles this morning. You're a good girl. What do you think about it?
There were even leg dangles for Kiah and the new Saramas.
Yeah, we have Saramas now. But before I get into the why of having Saramas, I'm going to tell you guys what happened with Kiah and Billy, and I'm going to try to be as brief as I can. If you don't know who I'm talking about, you can go back if you want to and go to my Bantam playlist, and all of that information is in those videos, and that'll catch you up to date. Probably most people watching this are going to know who I'm talking about, but she is the little porcelain du clay that had the slip tendon, and she ended up with just Billy. So, part of that reason was so that she didn't get re-injured, because the other coachins were a little older than her. And so the two of them had been staying in the house and then coming out during the day. She really was learning how to use that leg for balance. And if she wanted to go somewhere fast, she would use her wings too. And so she was doing really good, just hopping around. About 11 days ago now, I think it's been 11 days, I got up, and first thing I would do in the morning is go into the sunroom and check on them. And then shortly after, I would take them outside, and I had an enclosure for them beside the coachins' outdoor run so that they could, start connecting. So we were hoping we could eventually add them in with that group. And I could hear her peeping before I even got to the sunroom. And so I walked in, and she was just sitting on the ground, and she was just peeping and peeping. And I was like, what is wrong? It just seemed very odd. So I picked her up, and when I did, she started flapping and it seemed like off balance. And I was like, what? And, I had to calm her down and put my hand over her back. And I was like, you're okay. And it felt like she was gripping my hand, because I just always would pick her up and put my fingers under her and let her legs hang. And it felt like she was just gripping onto my hand. So I got her calmed down, and I looked at her feet, and I was horrified at what I saw. Now, I check their feet every single day because they're heavily feathered, and I don't want them to go, walk around with poop on their feet. And because they were in a brooder, sometimes they would pick up poop. The day before, her foot looked not normal, but it looked normal for the slip tendon issue she had. It looked like her foot had almost twisted around and was upside down. I mean, I can't even, I was just like shocked. She was clearly in pain. So I just put her back down and I was like, Mark wasn't home. And I was like, I've got to find a vet. Now, if you know, there are no vets around here that see chickens, but I do have a list of avian vets. So I started calling. I got about 5, vets down and got we can't see her today. It'll be in a few days. It'll be next week. No answer at all. Answering machine. And I just thought, I've got to find somebody like right now. So I called my own vet and I was like, I know that you don't see chickens. I had to have him call me back. It's like, I know you don't see chickens, but here's my situation. I just need an x-ray. I just need to know, like, if you can look at this and tell me what you think is going on. So he said yes, and he was able to get me in. So put her in a crate and got her to the vet's office. And when he saw it, he just was like, oh my goodness, this is not good. And he said, what it looks like is that because she is still growing, that this tendon has contracted and it is starting to pull her leg and twist it almost around backwards. And I said, she has just had a growth spurt. So you are probably right. And he just looked at me and he said, I'm going to tell you right now, you've got 2 options. You can amputate her leg or you can let her go. And he said, I highly suggest that you let her go. And he said, her continued growth is going to make this worse if you do nothing. And a chicken that needs to fit into a flock that only has 2 legs to start with and is down to 1 is going to be subjecting her to a life of difficulty and suffering that I don't recommend. And I just looked at him and said, I agree. And I decided to let her go. Now, even this many days out, I don't regret my decision to let her go because she had literally had a life of struggle since the day she got here, practically. And, I knew then still I had Billy, who was not integrated yet with the other coachins and by himself now. And yeah, I just said by himself because we had found out we were suspecting maybe about a week after I did my last video on here about a month ago that he was a rooster. And then, he just grew and he got the red comb and the, wattles. And I was like, of all the chickens to be a rooster. So we had already made the decision he was staying because we didn't really have a choice. We're not supposed to have roosters here. And, that was her only friend. So I was like, if he's, they've been in the house, every night for so long, if he's like really crowing late at night or in the morning, I will just bring him in and put him in the sunroom because I'm used to it now. So after I had to let her go, I was like, what do we want to do now? We need to make a decision like right now because he's by himself and he was not happy about being alone. And I had a lady contact me that's like a friend of somebody in the family. And I don't really know her, but she had said, she watches my videos and she said, I know you can't have roosters. If you end up with one, because I've talked about it, let me know. I would love to have a little bantam coaching. So I was like, that's been a couple months ago probably that she contacted me. It was when they were little. And I was like, I'll send her a message. So I sent her a message and she answered me right back. And she said, absolutely, I would love to have him. And I just asked her if she could come on and pick him up that day. And she said yes. And so Billy went on last week, a week and a half ago, I guess, to his new home. And I haven't talked to her since. So I'm assuming no news is good news and that he is doing well. But now I'm going to get to the why of having Saramas. The whole time that we were on our break, I would bring them out every single day and put them beside the coachins. And I'm telling you, like, I didn't know how it was going to go to try to integrate these two with that flock. But I would bring him in sometimes. And with Billy, it was very typical. Like, you know, we want you to out of our space, but nothing out of the ordinary. They hated Kiah. I mean, not hated her, but you know what I mean. Like, they were like, we're not accepting you. You are a weak link. And I get it. You know, I've never tried to integrate a disabled chicken in with a group, but I understand that they see that weak link as something that can get them killed. And so I was just like, this is not going to work. These two are going to have to just be by themselves. So, you know, after trying to put them together for weeks, Mark said, you know, is there a reason that you don't want to talk to the guy that I mentioned with the Saramas? And I was like, I just told you I don't want to deal with getting chickens from this different place and that different place, because we've always, up until we got these coachings, we've had a pretty closed flock, and I don't want to bring disease in. And he goes, well, we know the guy though. And I was like, we do. Where do we know him from? And he said, from the feed store. And I was like, when he described him to me, I was like, oh my gosh, well, that makes me feel a little bit better. So he contacted him and he said, yes, come on over. We went over like I think the next day and took a look at him. He had 4 Saramas and then 2 Sarama Old English Bantam mixes. And they're just the cutest things. And so what we had already done was we took the quail run and we were turning it into a little separate coop so that they could go out the back door of their coop, the bantams, and have an extra little space and run. And so we went ahead and put Kiah and Billy out there so they could get used to it and have their own space already and sort of claim it. And then we went and picked up these Saramas. Now, unfortunately, they were not, I was thinking like if we end up getting something for her, it's going to have to be like almost like chicks, because Billy grew up with her and didn't seem to mind that she was different. The Saramas were not chicks. They were a couple of weeks older, but they were still so small. You know, I was like, this might just work. And I said, we're going to have to throw caution to the wind and just go ahead and put them together without a quarantine, because I don't want them to get comfortable here. So that's what we did. We just brought them home and put them in there. And it went really well. And they were very respectful of Kiah and Billy, and they would kind of skirt around them, even though Kiah didn't mess with them at all. And I was like, this is fantastic. So the next day, I went out there and they were dust bathing together. And I was just like, my girl has a family. I'm so excited about this. And the third day, everything changed. And it was like, I went, you know, I would go out first thing in the morning and, you know, check on everybody. And I would see them pecking her if she would come to the food bowl. A couple hours later, it was worse. A couple hours later, it was worse. By the end of the day, and I was trying to not intervene a lot. And by the end of the day, one of them grabbed her by the head and held on. And I made it stop, and I just scooped her and Billy up and I brought them back in the house, and I was just almost in tears. And I said, this is not going to work. I can't watch this. And Mark said, what are you talking about? And so I told him, and he goes, I understand. And so, you know, I was like, anyway, we just let a couple of days pass and went back to what we were doing. The Saramas were still not integrated with the Cochins yet. So now I've got them and I've got the Cochins, and then they're back in their enclosure that they had, you know, Billy and Kiah that they had been in during the day. And we were sitting out here having coffee, and Mark said, listen, I was looking on Facebook, and there's this lady that's local, and she has silkies. And I was just like, we cannot keep getting friends for this disabled chicken that no one wants to be friends with. And he goes, they're little chicks. She's about 40 minutes away, and they're DNA sexed. And I was like, duh, like silkies. And he goes, they will sleep on the ground with her. And they're itty bitty. Let's go look at them. He goes, contact her. So I was like, okay. So I contacted her, and she said she had 2 that were 2 weeks old. one that was a week old, and then one that was a little bit younger, like a few days old. So we went and we picked up 4 silkies. And it was only about 4 or 5 days later that I had to put Kaia to sleep, and they never even met because I had them quarantined. But I will say this, as much as I loved that little girl, I wouldn't have these cochins if it hadn't been for her, that I absolutely adore. I wouldn't have these seramas that I have fallen in love with. And these silkies, oh man, these silkies, they are so ridiculous. They're so crazy. They're like little crackheads. And I almost just feel like, you know, she's just left me this legacy now. You know, she's going to live on here for as long as they're with me. And when we, turned that, what used to be the quail run, into a coop where the seramas now are, I said I have to change, after we had to let her go, I said I'm going to change the sign on the door, because I had a sign that just said quail run, and it has now become Kaia's legacy. So I'm going to introduce you to all of my new babies, and I hope that you'll love them as much as I do. Well, if it wasn't clear before, it should be now that I cannot be trusted around tiny chicks and tiny chickens, because in the month that I was gone, my flock went from 25 chickens to 42 chickens. Mm-hmm. It is what it is, right? What are you going to do? I mean, how are you not going to love those adorable little babies, even the little bit older babies? So I just wanted to also say I missed you guys, and I'm glad to be back. And I might still be a little bit sporadic because I still have a few things left to button up, but it is good to be back. And if you made comments and I didn't respond at all, I literally I've barely been on to even look and see what my comments were. So I didn't mean to ignore you guys. I was just doing all the things and apparently out buying a whole bunch of chickens. I hope you guys enjoyed this video though. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Have a fantastic day, guys. It's good to be back, and I'll see you in the next video.